Did you know you have to find the weapons for warrior and sorcerer to unlock their vocations? Or are you wondering which early side quests give the best rewards? Or how about being able to learn the secret of fast travel and being able to survive on your adventure while destroying all your enemies? Well, here are a bunch of early game tips to help you in your Dragon's Dogma 2 playthrough. And if you have any tips yourself, please put them down in the comments below to help someone out. The most important one that changed the game for me completely is the game options. If you go into system settings and go to the camera, this one's going to be extremely big, and that is going to be the camera distance. By default, your character is going to have a regular distance, but when you have a ton of smaller enemies running around all over your map, you're going to want to have the best amount of distance. So what you want to do is increase that camera distance. That way you're able to see everything around you and make the best decisions during combat. Now, if you're on a controller, I also sped up the camera x-axis. That way you can move your camera horizontally a lot faster in order to see what's happening next on your screen. The next one is the mini-map rotation. By default, it's going to be turned on, and when you turn your character around in the game, the mini-map is also going to rotate with you. If you turn this off, it's going to keep your mini-map from not rotating at all. That way you can explore a lot easier when you're entering into towns, or you're going into caves, or you're on the field. I personally just find this so much better. Two options that you can play around later on in the game on the system is the priority of materials to combine and the destination of combined items. For the priority of materials, it can focus on you or the pawn, which you can decide, but the big one is the destination of combined items. Basically, to explain this system setting, it's going to be whether you combine items and they go into your inventory or they go into the item storage. Next up on the list is the interface. As you get better at the game and memorize things, you can start to turn off certain HUD icons. The one I personally like to keep off that I find really annoying is the text above the pawns. I just hate it because they're going to say whatever's above their head anyway. This is the one I turned off personally, so my game looks slightly cleaner. We'll be going over pawn stuff later, but what you want to do is keep your network features on, and you want to keep your main pawn online access to anyone so that they're able to view and hire your pawn. Learning how to skip time in the game is going to be really important. It's going to affect the way you travel because nighttime is going to have more dangerous monsters versus the day. Different times of the day may have different NPCs that show up for specific side quests, and certain side quests in the game also require you to wait a couple of days, and moving time of day is going to be the way to do that. And you can do this in multiple ways. One is just by going to these rest benches and just dozing off. You can see that by dozing off multiple times, the day cycle will just push forward and continue to push forward. You can also do the exact same thing by going to a bar or a tavern and resting to advance the time by letting it go forward. And you can see that I walk outside and the time of day also changes. Resting is not going to fix your HP bar if it is depleted during battle. Another way you can make time go by is at the inn, except it's going to cost you gold, but it is going to completely fix your health and bring it back to the full amount. Another way is by using the camping kits that you'll find out in the wild or that you buy, and you can skip to a specific time of the day at the campsites as well, and that will also recover your health as well as providing buffs in the outdoors. But my favorite way of time skipping in the game is going to be by sleeping at a house that you will own later on as soon as you arrive in the capital city and complete Captain Brent's quest called the Seat of the Sovereign. Right after this point, you'll bump into an NPC called Mildred, who will make a request to go and meet her at her house. When you go in front of the house, Mildred is basically going to go on a week vacation and she's going to come back afterward. To speed up the time, you don't have to do anything but run to that bed and non-stop hit until morning, and keep skipping till she arrives back at the front of the house, where she'll show up and then offer you the home for 20,000 gold. This is one of the best investments you can make in the early game because you can rest in these for free and get your health back immediately. So it's a place you can always get your health back and skip time very fast. So do the quest, A Place to Call Home, and focus using your gold on this quest. There are 3 types of saving mechanisms in the game, with the third one being the most important. The first one is the autosave feature. You'll notice the autosave feature triggers when you see the red circle happening on your screen. Autosaves will override your regular saves in the game, which is the second one, where you can manually stop. Let's say before you go into a big fight with a monster, you open your settings and then save, and that way if you fight a monster in front of you and you die, for instance, the previous save will load up and you'll be right back at that exact spot. Now the third one, which I said is the most important, is known as the in save. In save saves are extremely important, and I want you to think of them as a hard save. This means when you reload an in save, anything you've done after the in save is going to be erased when you go back to that specific in save. So do not accidentally click that unless you're trying to erase your progress to go back. A great example is if you accidentally decide to slaughter an entire town, or just want to experiment by doing some crazy things in the game and it messes up your experience. You can go right back to your in save and it'll be like nothing ever happened. So make sure you are paying attention to when you in save and do it at specific intervals of your game. If you ever run into a scenario where the townspeople are really mad at you because you may have killed someone or attacked them and you have no way of resetting that at an inn, well, don't worry, I've figured out a few ways that you can make the town people feel better. One of them is by just resting and skipping a bunch of days. If that doesn't work, you can also escape out of town, rest a couple of days and come back to the town as well, but definitely prioritize time skipping. Another thing that I did to make everyone feel a lot better because they hated me really badly was to buy them all drinks after skipping a bunch of time. That way the NPCs may feel a lot nicer to me. You can also try giving NPCs gifts who hate you to improve their mood, but just don't try to give gifts to people who are coming at you with their sword. Keep in mind that your pawns in your party will try to protect you with their lives, so if you get attacked, they will attack back. So I also dismissed my other pawns that I got so it wouldn't be too chaotic and I could just control my main pawn. Here's a quick tip for you. Hit that like button and subscribe button and turn on those notifications so you can get more Dragons Dogma 2 videos like this in your YouTube feed. If you ever see exclamation points on your map, those are referring to treasure chests that are there. Make sure to open those, or your pawn just might go ahead and do it before you get to it. Throughout your game, you're going to be finding something known as secret tokens, and there are a bunch of them. Whenever you're at the Pawn Guild and talk to Claus, you can then give him secret tokens, and it'll tell you to turn them all in. If you hit yes, you can then see all the rewards that Claus has to offer for turning them in. So make sure to keep collecting them because some of these are really good. Sometimes you'll get quests in the game that ask you to perform certain tasks and do that task exactly the correct way. Now, my friend and I both performed this exact quest by having to throw a barrel at a certain area. I missed the spot and didn't get a good shot, while my friend was able to do it flawlessly. When we both turned in our quest, we actually both got different rewards. In fact, mine was way less than his, and he was also able to get an item on top of the gold. So this shows that the game does pay attention to how you complete a quest. Do it properly. As you're going throughout the world, you want to make sure that you're picking up every item that you see on the floor. It doesn't matter if it's bones, it doesn't matter if it's a tree sap, if it's little plants or flowers, just grab them all because they're all going to be useful to combine items. Make it a habit to constantly create items. Combining items also will reduce your inventory weight, and in the menu settings, you can also set it so that when you combine the items, they can go right into an inventory versus your player inventory, which is going to make a huge difference for you. And you can pick up the items that you need later on in an inn or at your own home. If any of your food ever gets rotten, don't worry, it's going to be used for the most important thing. And when you combine them together, you'll get yourself lantern oil. While you're playing, you'll be able to come across magic books that contain various different spells throughout your adventure. And the benefit of this is you should be using these, especially if you have a class that doesn't have any magic. For example, I am using a warrior right now, and this warrior is not known to have any kind of magic. And in this examples, I'm using a high level ice attack, a high level electric attack, and a high level fire attack on various enemies, even though I don't have magic. So just go ahead and use them. Otherwise, you're just going to sit around there doing nothing. By the way, if you want to get these magic books, or better yet, the name grimoires, you can go ahead and find it right over here in Melve by doing some parkour at this exact location. It'll give you access to Threshing Blaze, Winter's Path, and Fulgurous Lord. So go ahead and grab those tomes and stock them up for when you need them. One of the things you want to be really careful about is drawing weapons in front of townspeople. Example, I'm not even attacking them, and look at them all, they are starting to run. Everyone's looking at me, they're saying have mercy. So just put it away and don't bother doing that, because look, that guard was about to run up on me too. So be careful, keep them sheathed in towns or villages or settlements. Just, it's not worth it. Make sure that you are going and accepting every side quest that you can possibly come across. Of course, there's going to be those NPCs that just run up to you and give you the side quest, whether you like it or not, but make sure you're interacting just to get them all, because there are tons of rewards and different reactions that each side quest can give to you. For example, this girl in Melv who starts the quest called Medicament Predicament, and if you complete her quest and arrive in the capital, her grandfather is going to give you a 20% discount off all his wares in the store. Not only that, but she gives you a specialization that you can put on your pawn called Chirurgian, which is going to allow your pawn to heal others. The golden trove beetle is an extremely important bug that you'll find in the game, randomly sitting on trees. This is not to be ignored. When you collect these and then use it, it actually increases your weight capacity for your character. This is going to be really big because a lot of times you may accidentally run into issues where you're going to have tons of weight. And by getting a lot of these, you'll be able to reduce that amount of weight you have. Not only that, but your pawns in your party just might find them along your journey. They'll also stand out a lot more in darker areas when you're looking for them. So maybe find them at nighttime or in shady areas. After you go out in the overworld and defeat a bunch of monsters or complete quests, make sure to always go back to the pawn guild. That way you can put your new skills and equip them onto your character. You may have a better version of the current skill you have already waiting for you there, and you don't want to miss out on that. So always go back after that. Also, when it comes to any of the gear you have, make sure to enhance the armor. Sometimes enhancing the armor is better than spending money on a higher tier armor, because the stats on a lower tier armor will just equate that as you enhance it. When it comes to pawns, you want to always make sure that you take 2 other pawns with you besides your own by activating them at riftstones. If for some reason they do die, they'll just be returned back to the rift. If you really enjoy your pawn, make sure that you favorite them. That way you can find them back in the rift again. If your pawn happens to die, all you have to do is just go to a riftstone, activate it, and your original pawn will show back up. Remember, pawns can only be these vocations: fighter, mage, archer, thief, sorcerer, and warrior. Any hybrid classes are not going to be available in the game for your pawns to be. Now, when you're searching for pawns, you can also do things by using the advanced pawn search. This is going to be really important, especially if you're trying to find a specific vocation. So for example, if you needed a mage in your party that knew a specific weapon skill, you can look that up exactly here. So if you needed healing, just select that, and then you can search and you'd get a bunch of mages that know healing. So if you're looking for a class that does aggro like the fighter or warrior, you're just gonna have to select that and look for anywhere from level 1 to 21. That's how I usually look, and I'll search. And when I hit search, we should just get a bunch of fighters and warriors that do show up. There we go. So just like that, they have all appeared all around me. And that's pretty much how you're gonna be able to advance search for a pawn. Something else you can do is you can bait people to use your pawn, like being a YouTuber and asking please to use my pawn, or you could hit set a pawn quest. You could write exactly what you want your character to be used for. So let's say I wanted my character to be used for defeating an ogre. I can then select the reward for other players of whatever I want to give them. So maybe if the players help me do it, I can bait them with a weapon. Or if I just want to give them gold, select gold and pick how much gold you want to reward them for doing this task. And that's pretty much it. That's how you bait people to take your pawn with you. Pick good rewards, because no one's going to want to do it once a bunch of us are playing the game. So pick good rewards. Another huge pro tip is to always change out the pawns as you level up. As I level up in the game, I always go to riftstones to find new pawns. Ideally, you want to find pawns that are 1 level below you. That way it's close to your level and it costs 0 rift points to recruit. For this example, my pawn is at level 21, and you can see the pawns around me are going to be 0 that are level 20. And this pawn over here is going to be level 22, and you can see that it's going to cost you 31 rift points. The higher levels you go up with these pawns, you'll notice the more rift crystals that they will start to cost. If you end up recruiting a significantly higher level pawn in the game, it'll just be extremely expensive, but it'll make your gameplay super easy. It'll just start nuking everything around you in a couple of hits. If you're able to recruit a pawn that is level 40 or above, you're probably just going to be set for the rest of the game, and it's basically easy mode. Some big things to note about pawns is that you should never neglect your main pawn's gear. While it is tempting always to upgrade your personal character's gear, and keep in mind your gold balance, that way you can always keep your pawn updated, because there's no point if you don't have your party supporting you in battle. Always make sure to upgrade your pawn's skills, get their augments, as well as their core skills. The more monsters you kill in the game, the more discipline points you get, and the more you can continually upgrade them to make them the ultimate companion for you. Make sure that you're also utilizing your pawns on your adventure and in battles. For example, if you have a lot of weight on your character, why not just take what you have and dump it on your pawns? That way you won't run out of stamina and the pawns can hold everything for you. Whenever your pawns do fall in battle, just don't leave them there. Make sure to go ahead and res them, which takes about 5 seconds or less to get them up, and they will get their health back and they will continue to knock out, and you can keep raising them up. This is a good trick to do when you're fighting really powerful monsters in the game that may be above your level, so make sure to do this as they keep getting knocked out. Make sure to also utilize the commands to your allies. If you're playing on controller, it's going to be your D-pad. You can ask your pawns to help you, go over to you, or head over towards a location, or engage in battle. So make sure you're using those commands at all times as well. Another big one to do is use my pawn Henna. She's going to be extremely great for you to take on your adventures, as she knows so much about the land and has learned a lot. So you want to get her and put her in your party. This is the code on screen to look her up. Okay, I'm gonna be straight up with you. You're going to have to learn to become a master at roaming around at nighttime in the game. Why? Well, because it's really important to level up your vocations as fast as possible, as well as getting your character level up as soon as you can. Also, your pawn is going to be benefiting from this as well. The reason why nighttime is so important is because tons of different monsters show up at night, and you'll be fighting a lot more than you would normally during the day. It's going to make the daytime feel a lot easier. Something else important about nighttime in the game is that you should always make sure that you are carrying a lantern and that you have lantern oil in case you completely run out. Make sure your pawn is also having a lantern and lantern oil too, and carry some extras just in case the pawns you may borrow online don't have it, so that way your whole entire pathway can be illuminated and you have clear vision at night. If you're looking to get rift crystals, sometimes you'll open a chest and find it. You'll also get it by fixing rift stones that you find out in the wild by examining them and repairing them, and you'll also get it via the usage of pawns online. Make sure to save these up to get some powerful pawns for your adventure. When you're fighting enemies in Dragon's Dogma 2, you want to pay attention to the environment that you are around, because you can use that to your advantage. For example, if there's enemies at the edge of a cliff, you can knock the enemies off right into the water where the brine is going to completely destroy them. In this example, you can see we got an ogre basically on the edge. I think it's going to come back up and try to destroy us. Then it does its weird typical move where it launches off of edges of rocks, and then it just died and I got all the experience. You can do this with a lot of other monsters in the game, so just pay attention to the hillsides, whether you're fighting on an edge, etc. Just because your health goes to 0, it does not mean you're dead. What I mean by this exactly is, in this clip, I am completely poisoned and my health has finally hit 0. You can see my character start to topple over, but he's not in fact dead. All you have to do is go into your inventory and start putting healing items on top of the character ASAP, and it brought my character right back. If I didn't put healing items and he hit the floor, he's done. So you're never dead until you hit the floor. So make sure to heal. I cannot emphasize this enough, but make sure that you are always taking advantage and using campsites, especially when you don't have any buffs on your character and when your health bar is low and it's not filling up completely. By cooking with meat on the campsite, it's going to give your character buffs that you'll be able to see on your characters right afterward. This will definitely buff your party and help them in all of their fights. Also, you don't need more than one campsite in your inventory. Campsites are going to be permanent unless a monster breaks it, so you can use them over and over and over again. If it happens to break, just run into town, grab a nice one for 3,000 gold, and then just do it all over again. There are 3 ways to travel a lot faster in the game: Oxcarts, Ferrystones, and port crystals. Oxcarts are going to be a fast way to travel along roads, getting you from point A to point B. You're going to have to pay the person first before sitting on an Oxcart, but the benefits of being on one is, one, you can AFK and do something maybe IRL while it's going slowly before it encounters an enemy, or two, you can just doze off until you come up and fight an enemy along the way. Usually you're going to end up in one battle if you do the doze off method before going into a town. The only con of dozing off in an ox cart is that you won't reveal the road that you're on if you never traveled on it before. Here's an example that I have of me taking one of the ox carts in the main town to this town called Checkpoint. And you can see because I dozed off, it skipped literally right to that point, leaving that entire road blank. Just be aware that if you do travel in ox carts during the night, you're gonna end up encountering a lot more dangerous enemies, which is not a bad thing if you're trying to get experience or levels, but the safest time to use ox carts are going to be bright and early during the day. If your ox cart goes to a town and you talk to the carrier and he can't go the other way, just make sure to select the ox cart sign. That way it'll summon him again. That way you can go back the other way. Also, I did try to exploit the ox carts by going back and forth from one location to another, but if you clear off the route of monsters, it didn't seem to work for me. But let me know if you find any routes that you constantly will get monsters on. Now, the second form of travel is going to be using Ferrystones. You'll find one of your first Ferrystones when you enter the capital and talk to a guy named Filbert at this exact booth here. Ferrystones usually will cost about 10,000 gold in the game, so they are pretty expensive, and usually the vendors are limited to about one. You'll find them on some merchants as you're traveling as well, but essentially all Ferrystones do is allow you to go and teleport over to a port crystal, and port crystals are going to be these glowing objects that you'll find in the town. Think of them like the fast travel points that you unlock. So when I throw my Ferrystone, you can see that I have options to go to these specific spots in the game, and that's where my character will immediately teleport to the main towns and main points on the map. Now, besides just the port crystals that the game gives you, you'll also be able to get your own port crystals that you can place down anywhere you want. Unfortunately, you're not going to have this right away. You're going to have to do a bunch of quests from Brent. The specific one that gives you it, if you want to know, is called the Feast of Deception. This will then allow you to place a port crystal wherever you want in the game. Maybe it's a hard spot. That way, when you use a Ferrystone, you can go to that exact location of your choice. If you don't like the way your character looks, you don't have to worry, because there is a shop in the main capital city of Vernworth. There's going to be a location known as Clovis's Barbrier. That's such a hard word for me to say. But essentially, it looks like this with the blue, red, and white. And you want to go inside, but you're going to notice that the options are going to be pretty expensive here. So it's 10,000 for hair, 10,000 for makeup, 10,000 for markings. Changing multiple things on the character is just going to be 25,000, so cheaper to do that. And you can modify the complete appearance. But in order to modify the appearance, you're going to want to make sure that you are going right into the Grand Riftstone of Vermont, which is going to be basically dead center at all these shops over here. So the statues here to the entrance, and then you're gonna have this giant area. You're gonna want to walk inside of here and immediately talk to this person here. And if you look at the wares, you also get things that will change the way your pawn behaves over here. And the Art of Metamorphosis is what you can use to change your character pretty much at the other shop, so you can get a different appearance if you just don't like the way your character looks. These, of course, are going to cost RC in order to get, as well as some other interesting items here. So when you arrive to the capital city and go to the Pawn Guild, you're going to see that there are two new vocations that you can get. You can see that there is a sorcerer there, and you're going to see that there is the warrior. When you select it though, it's going to be marked in red because you can't actually get it. And when you exit the menu, you're going to get a quest that is called Vocation Frustration. You have to get the specific weapons for the vocations. Now, in order to get those weapons, you have to talk to Captain Brent. And by now, you should already have completed the main story quest called Seat of the Sovereign, which will allow you to meet Captain Brent in the bar, and he gives you a bunch of options to add on quest. Make sure that you select Monster Culling. That is the most important one to unlock these vocations. When you select that, you'll get a bunch of marks on your map. The specific one is you want to exit out of Vernworth and make your way all the way to this cave known as the Trevo Mine. The Trevo Mine is where you're going to be able to find these weapons. So as you're exploring, you'll see that I find the sorcerer weapon located right over here. And when I'm in this part of the cave, my pawn goes and grabs the warrior weapon. Pretty much just explore the entire travel mine, grab all the weapons and items here anyway, because you're gonna have to clear out this area anyway during the quest. So then you'll go to Claws and provide him with the weapons that will then unlock the vocations of Sorcerer and the Warrior. That way you can go ahead and switch that out in the early game and continue on with your playthrough if you want to play as these classes. This is obvious, but also probably needs to be said. Don't be afraid to switch out to other classes at any time, because augments from other classes can mix and match with other classes. So you want to get as many augments as possible to create the ultimate build. And by doing all these different vocations, you can go ahead and get that. Do this for your pawn as well. If you ever find yourself stuck or lost in the game or trying to figure out what to do next, the game is actually going to provide you with someone in the main capital city known as the Oracle that is located right over here. When you talk to her for 50 gold, she'll tell you exactly who you might need to meet, where you might need to go. I also played around by selecting different quests to be my main quest and got different notifications from her. So play around with this and see what you may need to do in the game if you find yourself stuck at any time. If you ever find yourself stuck while doing any kind of quest and it's showing a specific area and you just can't figure out where to go, always try and just push the walls. You'll sometimes just find a secret passageway or a secret wall in that area. Now, this is a really important item and it's known as Wakestone shards. You may come across them randomly if you open up a chest, or if you do a quest with somebody's pawn, you will get the reward. Usually when you travel with them for about a day, you'll get that shard as a random reward. Now, when you get 3 shards, it'll make a Wakestone, and Wakestones are going to be really important because if you accidentally die, for example, your character will get the option to use the Wakestone and then you could literally wake up. You get your full health bar back and everything is all nice and dandy. It can also be used to resurrect an NPC if you happen to kill one, but you won't do that, right? Later on in the game, specifically in the royal area of the capital city, you'll come across this item known as Dragon Gaze. And what Dragon Gaze is going to do is reveal all locations of Wakestone shards that are located on your map. I found my first one in this really tall tower right on the map over here. If you take the Oxcart over here and go to Checkpoint Town and go all the way up to this gate, you won't be able to pass through it unless you have a specific permit to get through. This permit is only obtainable by doing the main story quest by the Captain Brent. Hey, you should click on this video over here on my face because now you know all these early game tips, but did you know about this? You should click on it.